Welcome to the Success Consultancy's Just Great People podcast, the podcast that introduces you to ordinary people who've done extraordinary things. My name is Barry Eustance, and I'd like to introduce you to today's guest. Hi, everybody. It's Barry Eustance here from the Success Consultancy's Just Great People podcast. Really delighted to introduce today Marcellus Lindsay. Marcellus is an implementation specialist from Lindsay Consolidated Services, and Marcellus is going to explain exactly what an implementation specialist is, and also a sneak preview. We might even talk about change and transformation and where we met. Marcellus, welcome. Delighted to have you, and over to you.
Yes, so, well, I guess starting from where we met, because one of the things for me is I believe that we're on a journey that we're always learning. I enjoy learning, and it's that curiosity that drives me, and it's driven me throughout my entire, career. I wasn't that great at school or anything like that, like kind of average grades, and I hung out with the smart kids and I did the whole job thing. And then I decided that I wanted to do something, to work with people. So I went into restaurant management, and then I figured out that I was actually in hotel management. If I do hotel management, the first few years of my career, I'll be working every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, and every New Year's. So I said, I don't want to work those kind of hours. So I said, let me move into banking. Moved into banking and ended up working for a bank that was open 7 days a week. So eventually, with all those things happening, I said, I just need to get connected with something that I enjoy doing and people that enjoy doing what they do. Kind of what I call the career trifecta. People who feel they were born, this is their purpose, this is their passion, and this is their profession. And that community is where I met you, as far as the people in the Oxford Review, because it allowed me to understand the academic aspects of what I do, that it's not all just made up. You know what I mean?
That's right.
But it's a real science, and it can be academically, proven, the things that we're talking about. And then drawing in all these other things from different ideas and people, and how we met during the serendipity call, which is, let's just see what happens. Kind of like, just great people kind of conversation. So, so I'm just really glad that I'm in that organization, glad I met you, and just enjoy the people that you're talking to. I enjoy talking to them too, so I can also get a chance to hear them when it's not just, in that kind of forum.
Absolutely. And in fact, we should give David Wilkinson and the Oxford Review a shout out here. Folks, if you haven't, yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you haven't Googled the Oxford Review, do. If you haven't joined it, do. You'll meet some great people globally who've done an awful lot of stuff. In fact, the roster of people who've come on the Just Great People podcast is populated by a significant proportion of those who are also Oxford Review members. So, David, you're doing a great job, and we're really grateful for it. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but running on with that theme. So you've gone through hotel management, banking, and then
into retail. So it wasn't retail working; it was working for a large multinational organization, Claire's Accessories. They do hair accessories,
right?
But I worked for them. And I just learned a lot, because I started off on like the service desk, like as a temp. And they were like, you are not a temp. You're way more than a temp kind of thing. And then I got into working on the help desk. Then I became a systems manager and got into project management. But at that time, like it's like 1990, they could have been stating myself now. Late 90s, project management wasn't even as well structured and disciplined. It was a way for people to put something else on the bottom line, and we'll add project management. But it was starting to mature more. And then a colleague of mine, June Swain Phillips, brilliant lady, a program manager and such like that, we were talking about change. And she was like, I was like, oh, you're talking about like the change advisory board and doing the role of rollover, rollback, and legacy. She's like, no, it's the people part of what we do. And I'm like, people? No, they just do what we tell them. I send them an email, we turn on the software, and they use it. And she's like, no, it's way more than that. So I started to study and get into business change and looking at the people side, which I look at change management as the other side of the coin. You have that whole delivery. We have the software. We've built it to quality. But then you also have the people change. Why do we even have the software? Why do we need it? How's it going to change my life for the better? Yeah. am I still going to have a job when this software is in? Are you trying to replace me? Addressing all of that. So the software is created in collaboration with the people. So the people use it and benefit for themselves and for the organization. That was really kind of like my background for change. And then eventually I got more accreditations, the whole learning thing, craving knowledge, got accredited, PMI and Prince and Magic Successful Programs. I did them all. And the director said to me, he said, Marcellus, we are not going to be able to, keep you because you are growing at such a pace that you're outgrowing the team around you. You know what I mean? And he goes, when you go, and he actually shook my hand and thanked me so much for everything I did. But I moved on and I started to specialize in project and program rescue, or now they call it remobilization. So those underperforming projects and programs. And I found that I was doing a really good job at fixing things. Now it's kind of my nature to look, study, understand, take it apart, put it back together. And that's what I was doing at projects and programs. And part of the thing that made me successful in retail was the fact that because I'd been from hotel and restaurant hospitality with very thin margins, like if you lose 1-2% in, food and hospitality, that's huge. But I went into retail with markups of like 40-50%. So I would be the person managing projects and going like, 1%, what's wrong with you? And they're like, and the manager's like, he performs, he delivers, he manages margins. Incredible.
Yeah.
But what that did is fueled almost like a big boot project management approach where I got the job done. But I can't say people were really happy. It was operationally better, but it didn't have that feel of, I joined a certain organization, went to do consultancy one organization. For the first week and a half, nobody would even sit with me in the cafeteria. Not because of me.
What?
The role I was doing was basically centralizing certain applications. And so they were like, he's a guy that's coming in to do this, so we lose our jobs.
Yeah.
But eventually when they spoke to me, they found out, oh no, he's actually going to make things better. And I started to build relationships with them. They understood, my gosh. And I said, well, if you suggest this, and well, I had that idea 2 years ago. Well, I said, tell it to me. So I took their ideas and I took it to the leadership and I said, this is a way we can do it. And so-and-so said it and so-and-so said it. And they're like, you mean our staff actually have ideas?
Yes, that's a great that revelation, isn't it? That actually you've got people who've got really great ideas. And those are the people who are connected to the clients and the customers and they're at the front line and through the organization and really get it and understand where actually there are huge improvements to be made. Just let me have my say. Just let me speak.
Yes. But even with that exercise, I remember one of the organizations, they did this. We want ideas from the people and how we can save money. The whole cycle of the corporate, we need to save money. They want to engage and work with the people, the colleagues in the business. And so there were ideas that also identified for me the gap between people in the business and the leadership. So one of the ideas was we need to stop all those managers going to London on the train because we used to go from Birmingham to London. And we need to have them take the megabus, which was at that point £1.
Right.
And it was kind of like we would show up to a meeting frazzled, tired from being up since 4 o'clock in the morning. That's not the way we want to represent our business.
No.
But the people, until I had this like little focus group, I put a focus group together to understand this is not about first class and caviar. This is about getting to a destination quickly, efficiently, feeling refreshed and representing the company in a positive way. And then I understood the perceptions between leadership and the teams that they're leading. And then that actually fed into when I later did ADKAR, that they normally do a business change readiness assessment where they look at the leadership, the readiness of the business. But I actually separated it into, why don't we do a business change readiness as it relates to what the leadership believe needs to be done and what the people in the field feel needs to be done and their perceptions. And I found that to be really powerful because that's what started to inform my incremental change management methodology, is the fact that, to give you an example, we did a business change impact assessment. Now, the leadership and the delivery team said, the impact to the end users is only going to be a 1 out of 5, 1 being low, 5 being high. Yeah. When I did the same survey to the people in the field, they said it was going to be 5. It's a really high impact. Now, the project was way back. It's when we did the optical character recognition where you scan things. Yeah. These forms had to be scanned. And so the delivery team was like, you put it in the scanner, you press the button, it's in the system. Validation, click, click, click. That's a 1. When I went out to the field and I did the focus group, it was like, it's a 5. And I was like, why is it a 5? Let them speak. She said, well, it's only me doing this. It's not just 1 sheet, it's 300 sheets a day. I'm already working 8 hours, 9 hours a day. It's not in my job description, so we have an HR thing in here. Yeah? The sheets, when they're done, they have private information and you can't just put them in the trash, and there's no way we don't have a proper confidential recycling thing that I could put them in. Other things have to be sent to another office and there's no logistics in there. And by the way, we don't have a scanner. It's a 5.
Yes, we don't have a scanner.
And the thing is, here's the interesting thing. They were like, well, just order one through IT. But IT, with her request in that little sub-office, will put it on a service level agreement 5. Plus, when procurement get involved, that's going to be another 3 months of master service agreements and blah, 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 blah. And we're due to go live in 2 months. So it identified that gap in perception, that gap in, and this is what we create. These are things that are happening repeatedly all over the world. And everybody tries to reinvent it like it's the first time.
And just for our dear listener and our dear viewer, a quick acronym check.
Sorry, yeah.
ADKAR.
Yeah.
You mentioned ADKAR. And just so everybody, so you know it's live, I have to say the pinging isn't coming from my side. It is Marcellus, but we're live and we're rolling it and it's unscripted. So we hope you enjoy the experience. ADKAR.
So ADKAR is an organization called ProSci, short for Professional Sciences. Started out to kind of understand the science behind business change. And so they go ProSci, and they have an approach called ADKAR, which is awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. So this takes people through all those stages to understand the change. And typically you combine it with other methodologies, like this one, Potter's, and there's other methodologies that are used to help understand how you can do repeatable structured change, not just make it up as you go.
Yeah. There we are. So ADKAR, thank you, Marcellus. And continuing on with the story, because this is a repeating theme, isn't it?
Yeah.
All of the time, these disconnects in a silo mentality.
Yes.
Organizations that have evolved haven't really developed. They've kind of evolved, and people are sitting in silos without any clear understanding. And we see it in the airline industry quite a lot as well, of what's actually happening at the front line and what happens to the person who can actually save the day in some office that sits in an outpost somewhere that is really important, but people don't recognize it as being that.
And then they don't understand it until they see some report that's saying that things aren't performing. And then they want to come like a ton of bricks down on the individual who for a year has been saying this is a problem. And in many cases, people want to feel heard and valued. And even if you don't agree with them, but if you say, heard you, and this is a reason why we've made another decision, it's like, oh, okay. And they can still disagree with it. In fact, I say my implicit, I need to mute this. I say my implicit role in doing my business change communications is to make sure that I make it indefensible and inexcusable to say you didn't know. By understanding all the different channels, all the different means, all different forms, people will be aware. Now, you don't like it? Now, that's a different story. You don't agree? It's a different story. You don't understand? Let me show you more in these different places, in these respective formats. But the point is that by allowing people to feel that they were at least reach out to them, me as the person, let's say in the program communications or the business change communications role, somebody will go, I had no idea that was going on. And everybody else in the room will go, where have you been?
Because really, you didn't know about this. Yes, exactly.
And they become the squeaky wheel. But we still give them bandwidth. We still listen to them and say, let me take you through this in this other forum. And then that way we can show compassion and engagement in a professional way instead of we're not listening to you.
And the dare I say, the democratization of innovation across an organization and development, I think is probably alien to quite a lot of people, in that the taking the diagonal slice of people through an organization, getting them to contribute to the problem, it is perhaps not widely practiced. But yet there's that great willingness within organizations for people to contribute to change if they're part of it, and getting their buy-in. You're a long way down that road if they've been part of the change process from the outset, aren't they?
Absolutely. However, the challenge also is that corporate communications, in my experience, doing this for 30 odd years, from companies small to large, the majority of them, especially in large organizations, they're not communication, they're transmission. Look at our beautiful intranet. Pump out, 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 out. When you try to pump in, it goes into a black hole. There aren't service level agreements on how quickly we'll respond. Oh, that's for IT to have service level agreements. We're communications, and they do pretty videos, but they're not truly listening. And the reason I know this is because they tend not to understand a lot of the engagement channels within the business. Because a lot of people show up to meetings, and they show up to the general meeting, it's 20 minutes long. They're doing a briefing at the highest level of the business. This is where we're going, boldly moving forward. And then somebody shows up with some of the super detailed stuff. Well, I looked at a document in this repository on page 3700 and on the spreadsheet and line 10,000. Everybody's like, ugh. And they drain the energy out of the meeting. Yep. And then they'll go, this person, they're so miserable. No, maybe they have a message, but they weren't advised or not aware of a channel or forum where that level of detail is heard.
And there probably isn't one. Actually, there probably isn't one, is there? I mean,
exactly.
There is no way of getting that information up there.
And even if there is, sometimes even in those channels, they don't actually respond to the people. They, send us an email if you have a problem. They send it. And then eventually this person who's been impacted on a daily basis feels they have nowhere else to go. But I have the chief exec on the stage at the town hall now. I'm going to be heard. And then all of a sudden they could be damaging their reputation, or the chief exec who's trying to keep this major big vision going gets dragged down to the level of detail. Yeah. So it's understanding those audiences, understanding how we engage them, how we work with them. And this is where, again, going back to my incremental change thing. In that business change readiness, we ask people, how open are you to change? And a lot of people say, I'm open to change, technological change, process change, blah, blah. And they project this. But then what I do is I'll say, okay, over the next 6 weeks, we're going to introduce this radical way of working. We're going to make sure every formal meeting has an agenda. Now, nobody can really object to that. You see what I'm saying? And whatever objection you put, you're going to demand an hour from all these people, X £100 per hour for the meeting. And you couldn't be bothered to put 3 lines to say, or 4 lines to say why they need to be there and what it's about. Really? Yeah. So then I use this as a way to test the tools out of the change methodologies, whether it be, ProSci, ADKAR, or whatever, for them to use these tools around identifying resistance, communication channels, personality types, personas and stuff. We test it on a very small group of people that actually know about it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, yes. And they see how the tools work, because you'll find the compliance on people doing those agendas is typically quite low, even when it's important. So then I get to this team who's delivering the change and go, so you're about to deliver an ERP to people who've been doing the same thing for 20 years. We see each other every day, and you couldn't even comply on something like this. And you want to have them engage and change the way they're working?
Acronym check. ERP.
Sorry, Enterprise Resource Planning. So these are things like the SAP, which is called SAP, by the way, and Dynamics 365, all these enterprise level programs that help people run finance and logistics and supply chain and all those kind of things.
The whole organization, essentially.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's huge. But the thing is, again, with going to resistance, we ask people, do you know how to manage and identify resistance? Yes, I do. So what does resistance look like? Rhetorical question, but then they're like, because in fact, resistance can look like this. Yes, of course.
Yes,
No problem. Or it can look like this. Or actually, compliance can be, okay, understanding people. And that's the whole thing, again, about the business change. It's what I call an art rooted in science. And by the way, art being act tactically, respond organically, think strategically. And the organic part is because a lot of people don't want to know the science behind what we're doing because they feel manipulated. So practical steps, organically presented, strategically aligned,
and
all using science.
And I think the message, Marcellus, there was very, very clear, wasn't it? There's a science behind change.
Yes.
And it's a science that focuses around people.
Yes.
And how people really think, how the neuroscience really plays out,
yes,
how it works practically, and how people need to feel part of the group. They need to feel part of the process in order just to get them to feel that they can engage and buy into the change. But importantly, is that they can be massive contributors to that change process in an exponential way. Because if you're engaging, the famous example was was HMS, which was a healthcare organization, and it was one that Cotter got involved with and is one of their case studies. And they had 65% of their organization at any given time involved in the change process, the then current change program. And over a period of 2015 to 2020, they increased their adjusted EBITDA by about 85% upwards, and their engagement from not very good to sensational. I mean, 85, 90, 85, I think, percent, that sort of order. And it was Bill Lucia was the CEO at the time. If anybody's got the opportunity, read Bill Lucia's Leading with Your Head and Your Heart. A great book, which I recommend to everybody because it covers exactly what Marcellus is saying. That engagement is so critical. And without it, you are literally talking to the wall.
And what's amazing is a lot of the leadership, they're like, we don't have time, right? But the fact is, by not spending the time, it ends up taking longer and costing more money. If you know we were talking, I think, about this in our meeting before, about the Stephen Covey book, The Speed of Trust.
Yeah.
In which, as trust increases, speed increases and costs decrease. And when you foster an environment of low trust, things slow down and get more expensive. So the leaders often think, and sometimes it's just their journey. Because I work with a group of people that what happened was they were working on the program. They were part-time working on the program. And then the program said, okay, we need these people full-time. So we'll second them out of their roles to work for the program. Now, the program ended up taking with a couple false starts, nearly 2 years. And at this point, they brought in a service or a solutions integration partner to work on building, the actual end result that they wanted to do. But at this point, they used to be the experts because the business kept on evolving while they were in this role. So they were no longer the experts. They weren't even sure if there was going to be a job for them to go back to. They didn't know the end solution because the partner wasn't sharing the picture with them. And they were stuck in the middle. But they were the ones that are now told, you need to design a solution. As it worked out, and the point that I got into the program, we were getting into user acceptance testing, also known as UAT. I'm aware of the acronyms now. I'm getting better, Barry. And they were going through the tests, and it wasn't working. I'm like, why is it not working? So if you imagine, it's like step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 built into the system. But it was failing on step number 2. And when we sat down with the people, why is it failing? They got to step 2, and they're like, this won't skip. What do you mean skip? You're supposed to do step 3. They go, oh, no, we never do step 3, and 4. We normally just put star, tab, star, and we jump, which is why the data was so corrupt in the business. Because people weren't putting in the data, and it was hard work. So they just skipped it. But the person who designed it perfectly, and also from a perspective of how it was 2 years ago. You see? So it's this constant, this is why we need in the R and the reinforcement in the ADKAR methodology, is keeping engaged with communities of practice, understanding as things evolve and as they grow, and keeping that ongoing relationship, because business moves quickly.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we always need to remember it's about people.
Yes.
And stakeholders and the engagement. Marcellus, we need to continue this conversation in an additional podcast, because there's so much gold coming out of this podcast in terms of value to listeners. It's, as you know, change and transformation is a subject very close to my heart, and getting it done correctly, and the engagement of people. So can we have another podcast soon to continue this and start taking people through the steps that you perceive as so important to actually achieve successful, and successful means sustainable change and implementation. Will you happily come back and can we move?
I'd happily come back. And I'd be happy to come back. And I've really enjoyed sharing with you and with the audience. And I like the definition of success.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, we'll go through that again, because we're just about to relaunch the website. So when everybody's watching, it's all explained there. But successes about the successes of a successful organization. I won't take you through them now. But Marcellus, you've been stunning, and I love the energy that comes through with the what people perhaps might consider is a dull subject. Frankly, it's not. It's the one thing that's going to come at you forever, and has been coming at us forever. And it is change, and it's accelerating, because we've got AI and we've got all sorts of other things that are accelerating that process. So people are taking less time to do stuff. And so leading change and transformation is absolutely critical. And getting it right is not easy and requires a science. And Marcellus, we'll explore that next, I think, shall we? How you think we should, it's not my podcast, it's Marcellus's, how Marcellus believes we should be moving that forward, and how it's going to help your organization, big, small, SME, enterprise, not for profit, whatever it is. Marcellus will explain and take us through that process.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing this opportunity with me, Barry.
Well, Marcellus, thank you so much for sharing your insights and wisdom with us. We look forward to seeing you again soon, and we will.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And before we go, just a reminder, please do like, do share, and please do subscribe to this podcast, and ensure that you pass it on to everybody you know. So that's it for today's Just Great People podcast from the Success Consultancy. We hope and trust you've enjoyed it. Please join us next time, and please do remember to subscribe. Thanks for joining us.